Welcome back. This time to the background and recall for Book 10, The House of Hell. Now we're in late 1984 when this came out. I remember it well. On December the 2nd, 1984, my parents actually moved to South Wales, and I started a new school. And it was in a little village, and there was a bookshop in said village, and I immediately went to said bookshop. And I remember traipsing through the snow on successive days after school because this older woman in the bookshop, she's probably about my age now, I guess, but maybe a bit slightly older, had told me that there was a new fighting fantasy book coming out. So early December, every day I was traipsing to this shop, and she kept saying, "Oh, it's not here today. It's not here today. It's not here today." So I'd come back the next day and the next day and the next day, and eventually, I remember a copy of Maelstrom arriving, which wasn't a fighting fantasy book, and I was rather disappointed. But shortly afterwards, House of Hell came out, so I can't pinpoint whether I got it in the December of 1984, which is listed as being published in 1984, or whether it was early January. I remember it was definitely winter, because I remember having to turn the light full on at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon because there was no light, and playing through it for the first time. So what's the background? What's the setting? So it's a little bit, this one's a bit unique, I suppose, in that it's actually set in our world, not on the continents of Alancia, Kakabad or Cool. It's on planet Earth, and it's basically taking its inspiration from kind of the Hammer horror genre of kind of films. So you're driving along, the rain is beating on the windscreen, you're lost, you encountered some old guy some miles ago who sent you down this track, no doubt, by some sort of scheming, nefarious means, and then suddenly someone appears in front of your headlights, and you think you hit this guy, you swerve, and you end up in a ditch, and that's the end of your car. Your car's not going to start. It's still beating down with rain, and then you see this light in the distance for a house. So you think, I've got no option but to go out and knock on the door. But then you're really kind of disturbed because you've got the guy that you think you've hit looked like the guy that you was given some directions from some miles ago. So now you're disturbed. So off you traipse to knock on the door of said house, and the adventure begins. Now, what do I remember about the adventure? And this is a terrible indictment, probably on my memory, but also the school system, unfortunately, because it was about this time that unfortunately homework began, aged kind of 10, nearly 11 in my case. And all of a sudden, my free time wasn't my own anymore. So whereas I used to read these books repeatedly and religiously, and I had a very good permutation of everything that would occur because I started to memorize everything. By the time we got to this stage, I started to play them less. So my recall of House of Hell is perhaps not as good as some of the earlier books. However, what I do recall, we have definitely a horror setting. There were devil worshippers and various undead creatures. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's coming out of the Frankenstein Dracula playbook of Hammer horror, but maybe some of the other more obscure Hammer horror type films. One thing that crossed my mind that it reminded me a little bit of, there was a film that I think is to this day one of the best I've seen, called Race with the Devil, and I think it came out in like the early 70s, and it had two young couples basically fleeing across the United States in a huge motorhome from an encounter they'd had earlier when they were on holiday, and they're basically chased across the country by devil worshippers. And the devil worshippers inside House of Hell have got that kind of flavor to them. They wear all these funny kind of, horned masks and things like that. So your mission is basically to escape the House of Hell, and I think you end up burning it down, which probably I should mention early on. One of the things I thought about the actual house in it, both on the cover to a degree and inside in the internal illustrations, is I thought it was perhaps um, inspired by the Marsten House in the original Salem's Lot movie. Um, so if you compare the two images, I think we're onto something there. And also on the very last image, whereby you complete it, it also has that same feel to it. It's like burning down the Marston house. So I don't know whether he did indeed use that as inspiration, but that's just me reading between the lines. So we go into the house, and I remember this one being fiendishly difficult. You're talking about somebody who didn't use maps, so it had very much the Maze of Zagra effect to it. Everywhere you would turn, you would end up getting lost. It was like you were in a maze. You'd come back to the same point. You didn't seem to be able to progress. He threw a quirk in it whereby you got frightened, and you had basically frightened points. I'm not sure if that was the term. I'll let you know when I've played the book. But so if you encountered something that was frightening, you would accumulate these frightening points, and eventually, if you got too many, you were frightened to death, just to add to your woes. I remember that there was some kind of horned devil which had a skill of 14 and a stamina of 12, just to make things even more difficult. I'm not sure if we can get out of actually fighting that guy. I think we had to. So all in all, it was a really, really difficult book from memory. One that really frustrated me actually back in the day. And I know this one is a fan favourite. Many people apparently on the forums and what have you have House of Hell as one of their favourite books. It didn't land that way for me, I've got to be honest. I've got it rated number 34 out of the 62 that I assessed in 1994. That's only one ahead of Scorpion Swamp. And as we've said in previous reviews, Scorpion Swamp is about as neutral and average a game book as you can probably get. So from what I recall, I didn't like this one. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't badly written or anything like that. It just, I remember it being fiendishly difficult. I didn't like not having my trusty sword as a warrior. I think you had to -3 skill points at the beginning until you got some weapons, which made it very difficult as well. And I just found it hard going. However, I am looking forward to doing it again with my adult head on, because this time I'm going to pick up on all the details. The analysis will be done in a bit more detail, and I'll break it down and put it back together for you. Just some interesting trivia that needs to be mentioned as well. I wasn't aware of this until I ended up reading Jonathan Green's history of gamebook or fighting fantasy game books with his You Are the Hero original book. But just as we have a load of idiots, a lot of woke idiots in today's society that seem to like to get offended, and it is their business to be offended so they can basically import their offence onto everybody else and do the woe is me act. And as much as I do think society has declined and it was better in my day, we all say that, don't we, when we get older, there is some evidence to the contrary. So there's one illustration in the House of Hell which had a sacrifice, where a woman was being sacrificed on an altar, and they subsequently had to remove it from subsequent reprintings because it had offended so many people. Fortunately, I have the original book, so here it is. However, there was also some other real nonsense that went on. So apparently this book, because of its kind of demonic devil worship undertones, got so many complaints from loons, particularly, I guess, those from the God Squad. They apparently, the publisher had a vicar that was threatening to turn up and handcuff himself to their railings outside in protest. Idiot vicar hadn't bothered to scope the building because apparently there were no railings. So I guess he never turned up, but he was threatening to do so. Particularly noteworthy, one stupid woman apparently said that her child had come out with the marks of the devil on his body after he had read House of Hell. She threw the book into the fire and apparently he was cured. Great. And then there was another stupid housewife, apparently went on radio and saying after he had read the book, her son actually managed to levitate. I can only fantasize about reading the book and it giving me said skills. It certainly didn't happen when I was younger. Maybe it'll happen now. Who knows? But there we are. The Loons fortunately didn't take over the asylum, and I think Fighting Fantasy publishers used it as good publicity in the long run. And indeed, many other parents did actually comment, finally my son's reading, and I was one of them. So with that thought in mind, let's get reading.